Foster, Anna Ascher, Brad Miller, Noah Goodman, and Ian Blake. How's that feel to see that film up there? Finally, huh? By the way, this is the crew that just got the film to us about an hour. But it was worth it, right? All that extra time? So, Stephanie, I have to ask, tell us a bit about the last 72 hours. You guys were really up against the wall delivering this film. What was it like? What was this pressure like?
So part of the reason that we were so delayed is because our story changed about 10 times. And we weren't really sure what we were going to base this on. Originally, it was just going to cover the increase in sharks. But when we met Zach and he talked about his dad, we were like, that's what we have to do. So, I mean, it was pretty crazy. I've been sleeping in the building right over there for the last 2 days. But, I mean, it was really amazing. And it's kind of a rush, you know.
Indeed, indeed. So keep in mind, folks, that if you have questions for the producers, by all means, raise your hand and we'll come out to you for questions. But first, I'm going to ask one more of Anna. Anna, tell me about, I mean, this is obviously such a touching and sensitive story. How does that feel to tell Zach's and Jimmy's story?
I actually met Zach by surprise. I was introduced to him through Kenny last Friday in the morning, and I had no idea who he was until Kenny was like, yeah, that's Jimmy's son. And my mouth just hit the floor, and that was when it all started and everything changed. And to see it come together, for me being an ES major, environmental studies major, gosh, it was just incredible.
Yeah, so Anna brings up the fact that she is the sole non-film and media studies major in this group. And I was going to talk to Brad about Apex Productions. The name of their production company is truly a powerhouse of film studies majors. Now, intuitively, that sounds like that's a good thing, but the old adage suggests that too many cooks can spoil the broth. Tell us a bit about how you all work together and what some of the challenges were of having so much talent in one team.
Yeah, well, I would definitely say that statement is pretty accurate for our experience. We've got a lot of different people with a lot of different talents, all sort of with their own very viable way of doing things, but sometimes those end up mashing up against each other. But pretty much the way everything went down is, like, we had all our original stories, like Stephanie mentioned. We've had like 6 different plans going through this, and when we finally met Zach and Kenny last week, it just hit all of us in the face, like, this is the film we need to make, this is really good, it's due in 7 days, let's get our acts together, like, and we were able to do it. We were scheduling, literally, like, we were scheduling shifts for like 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. and like, who can come in at that time? But yeah, we just kind of, everyone realized it was crunch time and we just got it done.
You guys did, you pulled it off excellently. By the way, Brad mentions that Kenny and Zach are here with us tonight. You want to just wave to us? I'm going to just follow up with Noah on one more question. So your pitch of this project was truly one of the best in the class for this project. How did the plot change from your initial pitch that you gave us to the film that we just saw?
So our original pitch was much more focused on the science aspect, the why are sharks rising, what is causing this, how should we be dealing with sharks. Our original film had a lot more media. We were originally looking for a huge antagonist to the film. The antagonist, we didn't want to villainize sharks. We were going to find someone who was all about culling sharks and like, let's go out and kill the sharks and present both sides and show people sharks are not all that dangerous and we should coexist. As Richard, I believe, said in one of the early classes, you were going to rewrite your story 3 times or 5 times, and I believe Stephanie said, we did that about 10 or 20 or 100. And as we found Zach, our story completely changed to something where it followed a person more. We no longer had that huge anti-shark person that was really presenting the shark story through a person who lived with them and did coexist with them, and despite, in the end, yes, getting hurt by a shark and getting killed by a shark, did not hold animosity, and that's what he wanted.
Good. Yeah, great explanation. Be thinking in the crowd, maybe we'll go. Did you have a question, sir?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, please.
When you're talking about doing a pitch, do you have a storyboard that goes along with that? You guys storyboard that pitch?
So when we made the pitch, we storyboarded it all out. We actually, for this class, did 5 different pitches. So 2 of us pitched variants on our actual film in regards to sharks. 3 of us pitched backup ideas. And then when we made the actual film, we also storyboarded it all out. But the story of the actual film we made came together more as we got the interviews and as we got the people, and came more naturally from that rather than a pre-made storyboard prior to filming.
So, Ian, you mentioned just as we were getting started with Blue Horizons that you were looking to get some more camera experience and some lighting. Tell us about your role in the film and what you feel, what new skills that you feel that you've developed over the past 9 weeks.
So a lot of the film and media study majors here would probably agree with me that we do learn a lot of theory, and going into this class, I got a lot of experience with theory, but I really wanted to learn some more stuff about production, and I definitely had my expectations like totally blown out of the water. I got a lot of experience using the FS100, which is the camera we use for this program, and it's the first time I really got to use professional lighting stuff, and I learned from Brad and Stephanie a ton about editing. So yeah, I think this class really exceeded my expectations. And
Good, yeah. Good deal. So, wanted to ask you guys about a little bit about editing. Editing can be a ruthless process. How does it feel when there are some pet sequences that get left on the cutting room floor?
Oh my God. Well, so Richard calls it killing your babies. So you get so attached to these sequences and you think they're so perfect for the film, and you have someone else watch it and say, no, that's a continuity error. No, you've already said that. You have to cut it. And it's like, you just die a little death every time. But I mean, it's worth it because otherwise the movie would be, 6 hours long. So.
Tell us about some of the pieces that we didn't see. What got left out?
There was a lot about, we interviewed a few people that didn't make it in. There was a lot about the science of why sharks migrate down to Baja, why they stay here, why El Nino, the warming of the waters, causes the juveniles to stay here because they're not as warm-blooded as the adults, so they're forced to kind of stay in warmer waters until the waters warm up here, and then they're just good to go. They don't have to leave. So, yeah, I think a lot of what we cut was the more scientific explanation of their behavioral patterns.
And the part about culling, there was a big fat section in there about culling for a bit. For those that don't know what culling is, do you want to just give a quick synopsis of what culling is about?
Yeah, so basically, with the rise in sharks, a lot of people are concerned that the only way to protect ourselves at the beach is to kill sharks so that there aren't any left to hurt us. But what they don't realize is there hasn't been a huge explosion of sharks suddenly. They really have just kind of altered their patterns because of climate change, because of El Nino. And what's interesting is that was a big trend right after Jaws came out, and sharks were cold to being very endangered until right around in the 90s, they started to be protected right around the time Jimmy actually died. And we've seen a resurgence since then, and they're finally coming back to stable levels. But what people don't realize that, I'm not sure if we left this in the film, but you only need one shark to have an attack. And fishing them to near extinction is not going to make you any safer.
No.
Yeah. And as Chris said, most of the time when you're swimming at the beach, there are sharks in the water, you just can't see them.
Yeah, that footage that you guys captured, I mean, the footage that you have there off of, is it Padaro Lane or Santa Claus Lane?
Santa Claus in Padero Lane.
So tell us about that experience with alum Mark Romanoff. Talk to us about that process. Getting out with Mark and filming with the drone, etc.
So we actually met Mark through Richard and Michael. Mark Romanoff, who is a past Blue Horizons student who now works in the industry. He's a fabulous guy. And he's also looking at this shark phenomenon, and he offered to take us out on his boat. He has a small, or small-ish, Zodiac. It's an inflatable boat. It's pretty big. And we went out with a camera, Brad and I, and we went out to, we took this long trip down to Carpinteria. You know, time passes so slowly when you are on the water versus driving in a car. It's really strange. And all of a sudden, Mark stops the boat and says, "Are you guys ready to see your first great white shark?"
Yeah.
And Brad and I just looked at each other like, "You can see them?" And he says, "Yeah, they're right there." And we just peek over. There they are swimming. And it was just, you never forget it, and you just, it really makes you feel small. But also it just was so incredible because right away, I definitely, I mean, call me a hippie, but they just seemed, they were so graceful and beautiful underwater. And rather than all the images we see in the media of sharks being vicious creatures, you know, the big jaw coming for the cage when cage divers are taking videos on their GoPro, when in reality they're just swimming in the waves and got your kids on the beach, and there are babies out there too. I mean, these sharks are, I mean, that was kind of something we played with, was that, you know, children play at the beach, and these are the children in nature.
Brad, any thoughts from getting out with Mark?
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. Probably a span of about, I don't know, 3-4 hours, something like that. We saw well over a dozen sharks just like easily within swimming distance of the shore, just
That
right
man, I
there.
saw 12 sharks.
So we must have seen
least.
dozens.
Wow.
Like,
And just
probably.
just outside the surf line.
Oh yeah, like 20 minutes that way.
15 feet out. Yeah.
Stunning. Let's go ahead and look for some questions from the audience. Yes, sir.
I thought one of the highlights of the film was the statement that he wanted to be eaten by a shark.
So that was a surprise to us as
I'm
well.
a waterman
Repeat the
too.
question, please.
I just want to say quickly, that was brilliant. I'm a waterman too, and I told my family the same thing, and here's what I really wanted to say. One of my students, UCSB students, I'm Mark McGinnis, I'm in the environmental studies faculty. I heard about him being killed by a shark elsewhere in the world. And knowing that young man and paying homage to him, his memory, I saw him in the water at his best, faced with this challenge and fighting for his life. And the fact that he lost didn't make his life less. He went out the way he wanted to go. I don't know if he ever said that, but I'm sure. Thanks for that.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, just to offer to the folks in the back that weren't able to hear from Mr. McGinnis that he was just commenting that he knew Jimmy Robinson and that he was he felt very good about the fact that he was in his element when he passed, and that it was the way that the filmmakers captured that sentiment was very touching and well executed. Yes, sir, in the middle with your hand raised. Yeah.
How much footage did you actually take for this?
Oh my god.
Go ahead.
60 hours? 100?
Well, considering pretty much everything we shot had at least 2, usually 3 cameras,
3 hours each.
right around well over 100, probably about 200 hours of video.
We interviewed 13 people? 15?
Yeah, they're
How many
probably,
terabytes did we use?
it was like 6 terabytes of video, probably over 200 hours, and we pretty much a week ago, we didn't have a film. So we basically combed through that entire mass of media in 7 days.
More like 3.
Feels like 3 because many of them changed together through lack of sleep. But
And they're not exaggerating. Like, really, the film came together in the last 3 days.
Also, to kind of help you visualize, the only footage that is stock in our film, or that we did not personally film, is the underwater shots of the shark swimming close by, and those were given to us by a researcher. So those are not paid for, those were generously provided by researchers. The drone shots, those were shot with Mark Romanoff when Brad and I went out. The shots of the shark in the wave with the kids in the distance, that was shot by Brad on Brad's camera. Most of the footage, even of the sharks, was ours.
Ian, give the audience just a quick idea about the 20% rule for the stock.
So we had a limit in making this film where 20% of the movie was the maximum that we were allowed to use of stock footage, and 80% of the film had to be from us. And so it was kind of a challenge to be able to find, visually pleasing footage of sharks, but somehow we managed to pull it together through those connections.
Yeah, and the reason for that is that you might ask, well, why do you allow them to use stock footage at all? Blue Horizons many of the films are geared around ocean topics, and we don't allow them to do any scuba diving on their own in the process of making the film. So we provide them with a terabyte or 2 of underwater footage from Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary, who donated it to us, so they can use portions, bits and pieces of stock in their films to round out their stories when they involve the underwater world. So, yes, Mr. Gorga.
Quick comment and then a question. First of all, fantastic job, wonderful film. Shark Park is also a big wave spot.
Yes.
And I don't know if you realized in your last scene at Brophy's, Zach, his friend was Chris Brown, the first to surf that wave, which is another amazing story.
Yeah, we actually had a copy of the Shark Park film that was produced about that wave, so it was really interesting to see all the people that were a part of that and to recognize that that was, kind of all grown up. Yeah, it's almost like a reunion of sorts.
So would any of you change your ocean-going habits after making this film?
No.
I'm gonna scuba dive more, I think.
I think that especially given this story and how incredible it was to hear told by Zach, who's here with us today, to hear that story and hear it told by him even made it more plausible that the ocean is a place where humans and other creatures can exist. And I mean, even the fact that in light of such a tragedy, one can still recognize that coexistence is possible. Really, I mean, it shocked me, and it's changed my view, probably for the rest of my life.
No, what do you think? Are you changing your habits getting in the water?
I don't plan on changing my habits in the water. I don't go out to the beach all that much already, but I do, not as much the specific story, but seeing the footage Brad and Anna were able to take on the boat, seeing those sharks. I got seasick on a couple of the boat stuff we went, so I didn't go on that. But now I really want to go out and go on a boat and see some sharks.
I'd actually like
from
to
a safe distance.
I'd like to add to that seasick statement. We went out on a whale watching trip and we were getting ideas of what film we wanted to produce, and Mino and Ian definitely got very seasick. And when we went out, you see the footage of Kenny before the urchin dive. Brad and Anna were out there having so much fun. Anna's driving the boat. Brad's like, look at all those dolphins. I'm like, wow, I didn't know you could actually die from being so seasick. I was literally retching in the cabin the whole way until we got there. But I mean, it was incredible to be out there in the islands and the stillness of the water, and the divers just going down for hours and coming back up later with these massive bags of urchins, and Kenny's cracking them open. He's like, here, eat this. We're like, oh. Okay, so yeah, they're a delicacy. You'll love them. And yeah, they're actually pretty good.
Let's go back to the audience, see if there's any more questions. Yes, sir.
Just have a quick question about, just for you as students, just coming out of this program, you've been exposed to so much new stuff that you hadn't been. What surprised you? What new passions have you come away with, part of the production process, or?
Sorry, just for the folks at the back, question was, what surprised you about the summer? Anything?
No.
You guys
think
are not surprised?
no surprises whatsoever. I think it was really surprising to see how much we had to think on our feet and how many people. We had interviewees cancel on us last minute. We had weather conditions that were not ideal. We had the project crashed a couple times, and that was really terrifying. I think I'm just more passionate about, I was definitely more of an editor before this, but I developed a much greater love for cinematography and for meeting with these people and following them in their lives and getting immersed in, a whole new culture. I have never had an experience really at the harbor the way that I have now, and I realize now that they're just a huge family that loves each other and protects each other. And it was just, as a filmmaker, you're very fortunate to be able to dive into everyone's world the way that a lot of other professions don't give you a chance to do. So it's amazing for us to think about, in our future careers, we're not going to be stuck studying it. It's kind of like being able to go to school forever. You get to just keep learning and keep meeting people and keep expanding your worldview.
Kind of to offer a counter to that, because my field is more the environmental studies, marine biology. I grew up around boats. My father lived in a marina my whole life. And so this community was like home to me. And so being able to share that with my crew, my friends, the amazing people that I met here and get the privilege to work with, being able to share that with them really was an incredible experience for me, and for them to host me in their world. I didn't know how to turn a camera on. I don't know if you guys want to Google what an FS100 looks like, but it is very intimidating, and there's a lot of wires and a lot of buttons with no labels. And I was very intimidated, but they all you guys took me under your wing, and just the cohesiveness of all of the talents and just being very accepting and open, welcoming, I guess is the word I want to use. It was an incredible experience for me that I didn't think I would get to have. I thought I would just be the marine bio type person who knew their stuff and then would step away. But they really were like, no, you can learn this. You're actually doing well. The positive reinforcement. Great, guys. Thanks.
All right, we're going to take just one more, and then we got one more film to go with. Yes, sir.
As cinematographers and producers, do you still think carpentry is the world's safest beach?
So I don't know if you heard that in the back. The question was, after this film, do you still think that Carpinteria is the world's safest beach?
I think it's still referred to as the world's safest beach. That's a label they seem pretty attached to down there. Really with regard to the sharks and everything, nothing's really changed. It's just more talked about because there's more media coverage of those kind of things. The main thing is just the great white sharks have kind of just moved where they hang out. Like, they've always been out there in the ocean. They just kind of hang out here now. And it's a nursery, so they're not the big 20-foot man-eating sharks. They're like cute little 5 or 6 feet great white sharks.
As cute as you can be at 6 feet.
Yeah, but they're not going to attack people. Maybe like fully grown people. But they're one of the things I learned.
Just to reiterate, they can't open their jaws wide enough.
Yeah. One of the things that I learned kind of on this journey, having next to none environmental knowledge, is like The sharks around here pretty much just hang out and eat stingrays and don't go after people at all. Once they get big enough where they're a danger to people, they go out to deeper waters, and the only way to get there is if you're really trying to go find them. So I'd say it's still a safe beach to follow up on your question. I don't think it needs to raise concern.
I think really any of these beaches that we see, based on what I've learned from this, is pretty safe. You just need to be aware of what's going out there. Be aware that, yes, there are sharks, but as I believe Matt Milliken said in our film, they're not trying to hurt you. They don't want to. As long as you're aware that it is somewhat dangerous, it's perfectly safe to be going out in the ocean. And if there's a shark sighting, if people are saying don't go in the water, maybe don't go in the water and let the shark be. But I don't think there's any reason with these sharks to be more worried about going out in the water and swimming with these creatures.
All right, good deal. Well, let's give another round of applause.
Okay, all right. 1 down, 2 to go. Next up, from Mushi Productions. I'm told